In this video, we use modern AI technology to recreate what food and daily dining looked like in Rome in the year 117 AD, at the height of the greatest empire the world had ever known. These scenes are AI-generated interpretations, built from historical records and archaeological evidence, to help us understand how Romans lived, ate, and survived every single day. This is not a celebration. This is a look at what it actually took to eat in ancient Rome. Long before the sun cleared the rooftops, Rome was already awake. The smell hit first. Wood smoke, baked bread drifting from the pistrina, the neighborhood bakeries that ground their flour and fired their ovens before most people stirred. Beneath that, the sharp, salty bite of garum, fermented fish sauce, that Romans poured over almost everything they ate, from porridge to pastry. Over 1 million people crowded into this city, and nearly all of them needed to eat before the day began. For most Romans, laborers, dock workers, freed slaves, street merchants, that first meal was called ientaculum, breakfast. It was not a meal anyone sat down for. A chunk of coarse barley or emmer wheat bread, dipped in watered wine, maybe a few olives, pressed from oil already turned rancid in the heat, maybe a handful of dried figs if the week had been good. Eaten standing up, in the doorway or on the street, before the city swallowed the day whole. By midday, the city's streets pulsed with the sound of the lunch rush. Most Romans in 117 AD had no kitchen at home. The insulae, the towering apartment blocks where the urban poor lived stacked 6 stories high, had no cooking fires on upper floors. The risk of burning the whole building down was too great, so they ate outside. The answer was the thermopolium. Evidence suggests there were dozens of these across every Roman neighborhood, stone counters built flush with the street front, embedded with ceramic jars called dolia, each one holding something different. Lentil stew, spiced chickpeas, salted olives and rough bread, cheap sausages pressed from scraps of pork fat and herbs. A customer would walk up, point, hold out their hand or a clay bowl, and receive their lunch standing at the counter, exactly like street food today. Garum appeared on nearly everything. The sauce was made from fermented fish, small anchovies packed with salt, left to break down over weeks in the sun. What emerged was a thick, pungent liquid rich with flavor that historians describe as the Roman world's equivalent of salt, ketchup, and soy sauce combined. At the thermopolium, it cost almost nothing, and it made coarse food taste like something worth eating. The real meal of the Roman day came in the late afternoon. It was called cena, and for the ordinary family it was modest. A steaming pot of pulse, thick porridge made from wheat or barley, seasoned with whatever vegetables were available. Onion, leek, cabbage, lentils, a scrape of cheese if they could afford it, a piece of salted fish or a few strips of cheap pork fat to give the bowl some depth. They ate it together, sitting on low stools or on the floor, sharing from one vessel, using fingers or a simple bone spoon. Wine was heavily watered down. Children drank it too. Pure water in a city of over 1 million people was rarely safe. The grain dole, Rome's famous annona, was what made this possible for the city's poorest residents. Each registered citizen received roughly 33 kilograms of unmilled wheat per month from the state. Ships from Egypt and North Africa unloaded at the great harbor of Portus, bringing enough grain to keep hundreds of thousands of Romans alive. Without it, historians believe the city could not have functioned. The annona wasn't charity, it was infrastructure. Just a short distance away, in the grand houses climbing the Palatine and Esquiline hills, a completely different Rome was sitting down to eat. The cena of a wealthy Roman was not a meal, it was a performance. It began around the 9th hour, mid-afternoon, and could continue for 6, 7, even 8 hours. The triclinium held exactly 9 guests by custom, 3 couches, curved in a U-shape around low tables. Everyone reclined, propped on the left elbow, feet bare, tunics loosened. Slaves brought scented water and towels to wash hands between every course. The meal came in 3 acts. First, the gustaccio, a starter course of hard-boiled eggs, fresh oysters, tiny fried fish, and salads drenched in garum. Everything was seasoned with black pepper imported from India, cinnamon from Arabia, saffron from distant provinces, spices that cost more than most Romans earned in a month. Then, the main course arrived. Roasted wild boar, dormice glazed with honey and rolled in poppy seeds, flamingo, mullet baked in pastry, lampreys from the rivers of Spain. Every plate was an announcement, the host declaring, through food, how far his wealth and connections stretched. Evidence suggests that the gold Trajan brought back from his conquest of Dacia flowed directly onto banquet tables like this one. The empire's victories were tasted in the dining room. Between courses, musicians played, dancers moved through the space, and wine, this time poured without water for the most important guests, flowed steadily through the evening. Finally, the mensae secundae arrived, fresh and dried fruit, honey cakes, walnuts, dates from Judea, snow carried down from the Alps and flavored with fruit syrup and wine, Rome's version of a frozen dessert. The host was not simply feeding guests, he was demonstrating power. In 117 AD, the Emperor Trajan had just returned from his wars in Dacia, modern-day Romania, with enormous quantities of silver and gold. Some of it built monuments, some filled the treasury, but a portion went towards something historians still find remarkable. He created the alimenta, a structured program of support for the children of Italy's poor. The system worked through low-interest government loans to landowners. The interest generated by those loans was funneled into monthly allowances for poor children and orphans across Italian towns. Stone inscriptions still survive recording the amounts and the names of those enrolled. What was unusual was the thinking behind it. This was not simply generosity. Trajan's calculation, historians suggest, was long-term. A generation of healthier, better-fed children would become stronger soldiers. Stronger soldiers would sustain the empire. In Rome, even feeding a child was a strategic act. In 117 AD, food in Rome told you everything you needed to know. It told you where a person stood in the city, how far their money reached, whether they had to stand at a stone counter to eat, or recline on cushions while slaves refilled their cup. It told you whether the state believed you were worth keeping alive. And yet, in a strange way, the same city sustained all of them. The grain ships, the thermopolia, the bakeries that fired before dawn, the emperor counting children. What endures is not the gold on the banquet table. It is the plain fact that every single day, a city of 1 million people needed to eat, and somehow, it did. If this brought ancient Rome to life for you, subscribe. Every video we make rebuilds a moment history almost forgot. Drop a comment below. If you could sit down to one meal in 117 AD, which table would it be?